The first thing I heard was the shower running. The second was a woman whispering, "Please, don't call the police." I froze in my hallway. It was almost 2 in the morning, and I lived alone. I had locked the front door myself. There was no reason anyone should have been inside my apartment. Then the shower curtain moved. A terrified young woman stepped out, soaked, barefoot, and shaking. She looked at me and whispered 4 words that would change my life. "They're looking for me." I should have called the police. Instead, I closed the bathroom door behind her and asked, "Who?" She stared at me like she was trying to decide whether I was safe. Then headlights swept across my living room window. Her face went completely white. "Please," she whispered, "if they find me, everything is over." Her name was Nora. At least that was what she told me. I was 32, worked as a freelance architectural designer, and had become very comfortable with a quiet life. My apartment in Toronto wasn't impressive, but it was mine. 2 bedrooms, 1 stubborn radiator, a tiny balcony, and a shower that had decided to become a swimming pool every time it rained. That night, I had barely gotten home when someone knocked on my door. I ignored it. Then came another knock. I checked the peephole. Nobody. I waited. Nothing. So I locked the door, went to bed, and woke up around 2 because I heard water running. And somehow Nora had gotten inside. She was wearing an elegant black dress beneath an oversized coat. Her makeup had run down her face. 1 heel was missing. She looked less like a criminal and more like someone who had just escaped from a nightmare. "Who are you running from?" I asked. "I can't tell you." "Then I can't help you." She swallowed. "They'll hurt me." That changed everything. I gave her a towel and an old sweatshirt. She sat on the edge of my couch, trembling while I made tea neither of us really wanted. Eventually, she told me she'd been at a private engagement party downtown. She had discovered something she wasn't supposed to know. Then she'd run. "What did you discover?" I asked. Nora stared into her cup. "My fiancé is not the man I thought he was." That was all she would say. I didn't ask for details. Maybe that was why she trusted me. She slept on my couch that night, or pretended to. Around 4 in the morning, I found her standing beside the window, staring at the street. "You can leave whenever you want," I said. "I know." "But you're still here." She looked at me. "I don't know where else to go." Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. So I told her she could stay until morning. Morning became 2 days. 2 days became a week. And somewhere between burnt toast, grocery runs, and arguments over who was responsible for the terrible coffee, Nora stopped feeling like a stranger. She was funny when she forgot to be afraid. She sang quietly while washing dishes. She hated horror movies but pretended she didn't. And every time she laughed, she seemed surprised by herself. I learned that she loved old bookstores. She learned that I couldn't keep a plant alive for more than 3 months. "You killed another one?" she asked one afternoon. "It wasn't my fault." "You forgot to water it." "That's exactly what I mean. It should have reminded me." She laughed so hard she had to sit down. For the first time since she arrived, I saw the woman beneath the fear, and I realized I was falling for her. Slowly, quietly, dangerously. One rainy evening, we stood together on the balcony beneath a single umbrella. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "Because you asked." "That's it?" I looked at her. "No, that's not it." Her expression changed. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Nora stepped closer. She almost kissed me. Almost. But she stopped. "I can't," she whispered. "Why?" "Because you don't know me." "I know enough." "No, you don't." She went inside. The next morning she was gone. No note, no message, nothing. I told myself I was relieved. I wasn't. 3 days later, I found an envelope under my apartment door. Inside was a photograph. It showed Nora standing beside a tall man in a dark suit. On the back, someone had written, "You should have stayed out of this." I called Nora's number. Disconnected. That was when I finally went to the police. I showed them the photograph. The officer studied it for several seconds. Then he looked at me. "Do you know who this man is?" "No." "He's Daniel Mercer." The name meant nothing to me, until the officer continued. "His family owns Mercer Financial. He was engaged to Nora Bennett." My stomach dropped. Nora Bennett. The police told me she had disappeared from her engagement party. Her family had reported her missing, and Daniel had claimed she left willingly. But there was something else. The police believed Nora had discovered evidence that Daniel and several business partners were involved in financial fraud. She hadn't been running from the police. She'd been running from him. I thought about the terrified woman hiding behind my shower curtain. I thought about how she had looked at me when she said, "They're looking for me." And then I remembered something else. A week earlier, Nora had asked me an odd question. "If someone trusted you with something dangerous, would you give it back?" I'd laughed. She hadn't. Now I understood. I went home and searched the apartment. Nothing. Then I remembered the night she'd arrived. She'd been carrying that black coat, the same coat she'd worn at the engagement party. I checked the pockets. Inside the lining was a tiny USB drive. And suddenly I understood why she had chosen my apartment. She hadn't found me by accident. Someone had told her about me. But who? Before I could figure it out, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks. I didn't move. Another 3. Then a man's voice. "Ethan? We know she's been here." My blood went cold. I grabbed the USB drive and stepped away from the door. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. "Don't trust Nora." A second message arrived. "Ask her why she chose your apartment." The door handle moved. I backed away. And then the hallway lights went out. I didn't think. I grabbed my jacket, climbed through the balcony door, and made my way down the emergency stairs. I spent that night at a friend's house, but I couldn't stop thinking about Nora. Not the mystery. Not the USB drive. Her. The woman who had laughed at my dead plants. The woman who had almost kissed me. The woman who had looked at me like she desperately wanted to trust someone. The next morning, Nora called. "Ethan?" I couldn't speak for a second. "Where are you?" "Safe." "Why did you disappear?" Silence. Then she said, "Because I found out who you are." My heart sank. "What does that mean?" "Your father was Michael Hale." I froze. My father had died when I was 17. I hadn't spoken about him in years. Nora continued. "He worked for Mercer Financial." "What?" "He discovered the fraud years ago." I sat down. She explained everything. My father had been the accountant who first uncovered the scheme. He had tried to report it. Before he could, the company destroyed the evidence and ruined his reputation. My father lost everything, his career, his savings, eventually even his marriage. I had always believed he had simply made terrible financial decisions. But Nora had found his original files. And there was something else. My father had left copies of the evidence with a young employee he trusted. That employee was Nora's mother. Had been investigating the truth for years. And when she discovered Daniel was continuing the same fraud, she stole the evidence and ran. But that wasn't the part that hurt. I asked the question I had been afraid to ask. "Why did you come to me?" Nora's voice broke. "Because your father left one instruction." "What instruction?" He told my mother that if anything ever happened to him, she should find his son. I closed my eyes. So you didn't choose me because you trusted me? No, no. Her answer was painfully honest. I chose you because your father trusted you. I felt something inside me collapse. Every conversation, every laugh, every moment on that balcony. Had it all been planned? Did you ever care about me? I asked. Silence. Then Nora whispered, "That's the part that scares me." We met that evening at a quiet cafe near the waterfront. She looked exhausted. I wanted to be angry. Instead, I noticed her hands were shaking. "You lied to me," I said. "I know." "You used me." "At first." That word hurt more than anything else. "At first?" Nora looked directly into my eyes. "I came to your apartment because of your father. I stayed because I was scared, but I kept staying because of you." I looked away. She reached into her bag and placed the USB drive on the table. "Everything is on there. My evidence. Your father's records. Names. Transactions. Everything." "Why give it to me?" "Because I'm done running." She pushed the drive toward me. "And because I need you to decide what happens next." I stared at her. The old version of me would have wanted revenge, but my father had already lost years of his life to that fight. I wasn't going to lose mine, so I took the evidence to the authorities. The investigation that followed lasted months. Daniel was arrested, several executives were charged, and my father's name was finally cleared. But Nora? She disappeared again. This time, by choice. For 6 months, I heard nothing. Then one snowy December evening, I came home to find my bathroom door slightly open. My heart stopped. I pushed it open. The shower was running, and there, sitting on the edge of the tub, was Nora. Dry this time. She looked at me nervously. "Hi." I stared at her. "You're kidding." I wasn't sure how else to come back. I almost laughed. "Maybe try the front door?" "I thought about it." She stood. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me." I wanted to tell her she had no right to disappear. I wanted to ask why she hadn't called. Instead, I said, "You still hate my coffee?" She smiled. "Absolutely." I laughed. Then the smile disappeared from her face. "Ethan, I know what I did wasn't fair. I used your trust before I earned it. I can't undo that." "No. But if there's any chance you could let me earn it now." She stopped. She didn't beg. She didn't make promises. She simply waited. And that was when I understood something. Love isn't always about finding someone without secrets. Sometimes it's about deciding whether the truth is enough to begin again. I stepped toward her. "You know there's a normal way to enter an apartment, right?" She smiled through tears. "I'll try to remember." Then I pulled her into my arms. And for the first time, Nora didn't look like someone running away. She looked like someone who had finally found somewhere she wanted to stay. Years later, she would still tease me about the night she hid in my shower. She'd tell people she was escaping a dangerous man. I'd tell them she was escaping my terrible plumbing. But whenever we were alone, she admitted the truth. She hadn't been looking for a place to hide that night. She had been looking for one person she could trust. She just hadn't expected to find him behind a bathroom door. And sometimes, the strangest beginnings lead you exactly where you were meant to be. Not because everything happens for a reason, but because, once in a while, Two broken people choose to build something better from what happened to them, and that choice can become home. If you discovered someone you loved had first come into your life for a completely different reason, would you forgive them and give love another chance? If this story touched your heart, subscribe to TaleViora for more emotional stories about love, secrets, second chances, and the unexpected people who change our lives.